Thank you, Aditya, for that beautiful reading. That phrase, those stanzas from the Bhagavad Gita, I think they're a perfect way to end that great scripture, and they warm my heart every time I read them. Krishna is there, God is there for each one of us, waiting for us to be able to give our heart to God. And God is always there, in waiting to bless us and waiting to bless us with His grace. Some years ago, I had I was giving a class in, I believe it was in Delhi, and I was giving this class on the topic of Kriya Yoga, how it was an introductory class, how it would benefit the audience, what it was a little bit about. And I, explained the technique a little bit to a public audience and encourage them to dive deeper and to experiment for themselves in this great technique. And afterwards, as I normally do, we have questions and answers. And one person in the audience, a lady, she rose up and she asked me, she said, "Well, sir, this all sounds very good, but I just am not interested in techniques. It's not, and it's just too complex for me. And isn't it enough to be just a good person? That's what I want to be. I want to be a good person. I want to do my duty in life. I want to help my neighbors. I want to be kind to people. Why is that not enough?" And I commented to her, I says, "Madam, that's a wonderful, wonderful aspiration for you. And I wish there were many, 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 many more people just like you in this world having that as a goal in life, because we need more people who take that and put that into action in daily life. But there will come a time, perhaps for you, maybe this lifetime, when you'll want more. You'll want more than to be a good person only. You'll want to be saintly as well. And when that time comes, come back and let's talk. And because something more can be given to take you to the next level of your spiritual evolution." And so as I went on and then explained a little bit further that it's essential that we encourage people, we have to have a foundation underneath ourselves of a basic good life. We have to be good citizens, you might say, or we have to be good devotees. We have to have that as the platform for our spiritual life. And if we don't have that, somehow we find that we never seem to make progress. We make a little bit of forward motion, but then we slide back, because what we're doing, if we don't perfect those qualities within ourselves to be able to take away the tamasic, that same energy, be able to convert it into rajasic and perhaps sattvic qualities, we always seem to be having obstacles in our place. And it's like we cannot receive the blessings of God that are available for us because we have not aligned ourselves with universal principles. And specifically in today's topic, we have not aligned ourselves with the flow of grace. Swamiji, I think, defines this in such a beautiful way. Grace is the power to rise spiritually. Now, this power, you could say that's Divine Mother, but this power is a flow. That flow of energy is like a stream of power that we have to immerse ourselves and put ourselves into that stream. But if we put barriers in front of ourselves, how are we going to be able to enter into that stream? There's that story that Swami would tell about one of his fellow monks when he was with Master in the ashram at Mount Washington. And Master had asked this young man to take certain actions. And very devotedly, he says, "Well, yes, sir, absolutely, sir. With thy blessings, I can certainly do it." And Master responded to him. He says, "Realize my blessings are there already. God's blessings are there already. It's your blessings that are lacking." And this is the basic principle that we have to understand in the spiritual path, that we have to enter into that stream of grace. Now, we don't create that stream of grace. That is a universal principle of God's love, God's magnetism, drawing each one of us back to our divine home in God. But it's our duty, and as a spiritual path basically encapsulates our putting ourselves in that stream. And so you see in all religions, I think it's universal in every religion that there are certain rules, there are certain dictates that we need to do this to be able to be a good devotee. And so you see that religion is basically a lot of obligations and things that we should do outwardly, and these are good things. We need to have that as a foundation to be able to act properly in this world. Think of the yamas, niyamas, but then in every religion, there are such things. In the Christian tradition, the Old Testament, you have the Ten Commandments. They're not commandments because we need to do this because God is going to be pleased if we do that. Really, we will be pleased if we do that, because if we act properly, we find that we enter in to that flow of grace. And that flow of grace is always there. I like to tell when we're doing a pre-initiation, I often will tell the students, we don't change ourselves so much from Kriya. In other words, we do the Kriyas and we gain certain benefits and we lift our, you might say, uplift our consciousness. It's not, you can, yes, you can say it that way, but really what's happening, we don't create the benefits, we don't create the results of that. What we do by the practice of Kriya is we put ourselves into attunement with the natural flow of grace. We're drawing grace into our lives. And this is the true understanding of when we do techniques, when we do our spiritual practices, is we're aligning ourselves with that flow of grace. And so the temptation is to think in terms of the technique, but the more beneficial thing to do is to think in terms of that flow of that divine power of grace, that expression of God's power, that we're entering into that. Now, this platform of right action, which is a must if we're going to make progress on the spiritual path. If we don't, well, we have lifetimes ahead of us to perfect those. But if we want to make real progress, we have to have that foundation. But like I said to that lady, there comes a time when something more is needed. And going back to, I mentioned the Ten Commandments, this is really the story of Moses. Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt. He led them into the land of milk and honey. He led them into the Holy Land. And really, this is a metaphor that, and of course, it was also, Moses was as Master explained, he was a divine realized master. But it also, the story is symbolic of leading, you could say, all of our qualities have to be purified before they can be entered into that Holy Land, that inner kingdom within ourselves. And so Moses represents that quality of our own selves, our own will, our own ability to make decisions. And yes, you could even say he's representative of our own purified higher ego self. And he led the Israelites, said for 40 years out wandering in the desert. Why did it take them so long? I don't know. But they wandered until finally he led them into the Holy Land. But there was one caveat. Moses could not enter. He had to stay outside. He could not enter. You see, this is representative. We have to use that our higher qualities. We have to use the tools that God has given us. We have to use that little sense of I to purify tamas, rajas, sattva, and then through when they're purified, we then have the ability to give them up entirely, and even to give ourselves. And this is what we do when we practice our kriyas properly. It's an act of self-offering, and we offer it into that stream. And then we find that stream that we're offering it into is the stream of grace. Swami had another definition also. what are we offering? I mean, we're offering these up to God. God is bliss. That stream you can think of is a flow of bliss. Isn't that so? We're offering it up to that inner flow of bliss. But he had an interesting definition. Bliss in motion. What is that? It's love. So we're offering up all of these qualities, all of these aspirations, all of these, personality and these traits, everything we offer them up. And it's when those things, those qualities have been purified, they're not so attached. When the attachment is just very fine. When they're not, they stick to us, very difficult. And it's difficult to enter into that stream, but we get to the point finally we just offer them up. And that offering, whenever we do any of our practices, if that offering is made in love, because that's really what we're doing, bliss in motion. And then we find that all offerings, however modest or sweet, whether you're an exalted personality or just a humble servant of God, all of them are sweet, and God accepts all things that are offered. And in this way, we free ourselves. And then we find that we then become capable of living by the spirit of the law. Those laws, they have their reality. The things were prescriptions we should do, and we must abide by them. But we ultimately get to the point when we're free, because we're in perfect attunement with the ultimate. We're in perfect attunement with God, and we're in that divine stream, that flow of bliss, which is love, the ultimate answer to the spiritual path. God bless all of you.
Jayaji, and welcome again, friends. This is such an important and a beautiful topic that we're discussing today. And I was just thinking how wonderful the life that we have is so, a life of grace, a life of love, a life of devotion, a life in God is so uplifting. And yes, we have our foundation, but we're soaring above that base. And every day that we meditate and we chant and we serve, and we're becoming more and more free. And I was just thinking of how Master presented the path it's so fulfilling, and that he showed through his own life and his example and the things that he did. And he showed how, yes, we follow the law, but we rise up with that grace above the law through our love and our devotion. And I was thinking of some of the things Master did, and he did so many that just enthralled people, that it was just, he drew you through love and through the blessings and his magnetism. And I was thinking of this story of when he was with Brahmachari Oliver, Oliver Black, and he came to visit Master, and it was pouring down rain outside, and Master wanted him to come out for a drive. And you just can imagine how the disciple felt. And he said, well, I guess he knows what he's doing. He puts on his coat, he walks out the door, and within those minutes, he walks out, and there's no rain, the car is dry, the sun is out, the sky is blue, the ground is dry, and Master looks at him and he says, for you, Oliver. And you have to love that kind of a story, because Master was saying, yes, for you, this is your life. And also I was thinking of Master when he was in Encinitas, and I don't know if those fishermen ever figured out what was going on, but they came in with, they hadn't caught any fish, and Master said, oh, no fish today? And they said, no, we didn't catch anything. Let's go out again. And then they came back with a large haul of fish. And one other wonderful story, Swamiji told this story, I think maybe the first time or maybe the only time, in India. And I went up to him afterwards. I said, I've never heard that story. He said, I can tell these stories here in India. And it was Master with orange juice. So he had some guests, and they had a plant where they were making orange juice. And so Master wanted the monks to go and bring some of the juice so that the guests could taste it. So the monk came back and he said, Master, there's just not a lot of juice there. Master said, bring it, come on, bring it. So he brings it, and it was like this much, like a little bit, like not even a glass. And I think there were 10 people there. And so it was in a pitcher, and Master just started pouring, and he kept pouring, and he kept pouring, and he poured 10 glasses full of orange juice. And no one really knew what to say about it. But you have to just feel so happy about those things, because he was saying, yes, we follow, we meditate, we chant, we serve, we do all these things, but our life is getting more and more free and uplifted, and we will finally soar above the law. And I thought it was a great story Master used to tell about these three hermits. And so I was brought up in a Baptist church, and in Los Angeles. I didn't know what was going on. I don't think anybody knew what was going on, but I loved God. And when I met Master, not in person, but when I came to his path, I said, finally, I know what they were talking about. And they, more than they did, my guru, my Indian guru, has taught me how to love God. And Master used to enjoy the story of these three hermits who were living on an island, and they had a beautiful prayer, just very simple, just a very heartfelt prayer. We are three, thou art three, have mercy on us. And so the local bishop, he heard about these hermits, and he thought, well, they don't know how to pray. Can you imagine? So he said, let me go and teach them. So he goes, has his boat, he goes to the island, and he teaches them the prayers that they should be praying. And so they say, okay, we're happy to pray those prayers. And so the bishop, he starts leaving on his boat. He's going across the lake and across the water. And then he hears someone behind him. He looks behind and says, the three hermits, wait. He sees them running on the water in this beam of light. And they said, wait, we forgot the prayers. And he said, my sons, whatever you are praying, keep praying that. And this is the thing, the heart has to be open. It doesn't matter how many kriyas you're doing. Or I gave, there was one man, Swamiji said, he meditated 48 hours straight. And he was like, now God is going to give me what I came here for. And nothing happened. And this is what happens. Nothing happens because the attitude is wrong. And the person who I gave so much money, now God is going to give me, he put $100 in the donation basket, and now I'm going to get something. And Master said, God was already the $100. I mean, what are you looking for? And so it's not what we do. And I've been on the path this many years. I do this many kriyas. I serve all the time. I do these rituals. I do puja every day. I go around with the bell in my house or whatever. I know the scriptures. I can tell every word of the Gita and all of that. But the question is, how? How are you doing it? Is it with love for God? Is it with your heart open, like Dr. Aditya chanted a beautiful chant, door of my heart, open wide. Now, is our heart open wide? Well, typically it's not. I mean, maybe it opens a little and closes a little, but we have to remember that it's the way, it's not what. And Master loved this story of this black janitor. And he was working, this was in a time of a lot of prejudice in the United States. But Master, I don't know how he came up with this story, but it definitely was a reality. And so then Master said that he was working in a white church. And I love the way Master says, he says, I don't know why they say black and white. You take off the skin, everybody's red. They're all red, but he couldn't stand that. So the man was in the church and he would clean the church, and he was so full of love and devotion. And he asked the minister, the pastor there, he says, now can I've cleaned the church, now can I come to the services? And the pastor said, no, you can't come here. He said, my congregation's all white. And you can't, you know what you are, you can't come here. And the man, he went away, he was so distraught, he just started crying in his house. He was praying to God, Lord, why can't I go to the church? I love you. How come I can't go to the church? And he said, it suddenly, the master loved this. You can just imagine him telling this story. And he said, then Jesus appeared and said, oh, his name was Jim Brown. He said, oh, Jim, don't worry. That church has been there 3 years, hasn't it? I've been trying to get in there for 3 years myself. I can't get in there either. So he said, just don't worry. And so it has to do with the heart. As Swami Sri Yukteswarji said, you can't take a single step on the path until the heart is open, without devotion. And we all know that story of the man who came to an interview with Yogananda Ji, and he had asked his first question, and Master said, love God. And he said, well, he might not understand what I mean. He asked another question, Master, love God. And then the Master said, love God. And Master walked out, because he knew until that man was open, like that, he wouldn't be able to understand anything. And this is why when he was with Swamiji, he said, you must open yourself. You must be receptive. You must develop devotion. And Swamiji got in harmonium. He started chanting. He started praying for devotion and opening his heart. And a beautiful line that Swamiji said, he said, as I learned to love my Guru more, my doubts all disappeared. Isn't that beautiful? And you can put doubt or my problems or my worries or my fears, they all disappeared. As I learned to love God more, everything else went away. And I love this. There's a beautiful statue that I saw in Rome at a church there, Catholic church there, of Teresa of Avila. It's a statue done by Bernini, where there's an angel and she's just piercing the heart of Saint Teresa, and it's just it's symbolic that her heart was just full of love for God. She was just wide open in her heart, and once the heart is open, then God can come in. And I was, of course, we know Dr. I'll close with the story of Dr. Lewis, but he came and he had so many questions, and Master, he asked him this question that the Guru asks of us, will you love me always as I will love you? And Dr. Lewis said, you see, I could feel the love. We can feel the love of our Guru. We can feel the love of Divine Mother. We can feel her embrace. And so he told Master, yes, I will love you always. He didn't know him. Master knew him. The disciple didn't. He couldn't really remember his Guru. And so Doctor said, yes, I will love you always. And Master went, yes. He said, yes. Now I can take charge of your life. It's a very important story and very important point. Now, as you open that door of your heart, now I can take charge of your life. It's just like in the purification ceremony, where it says, the Master says, open your heart to me and I will enter and take charge of your life. Without that, no matter how much puja or rituals or chanting, or not chanting, but studies and going to shrines and putting money in the basket and how much you do, that God can't come to you. And I was listening to a beautiful talk of Swamiji the other day where he says this, that there were two people, and they, at the end of their life, one went to heaven and the other went to the other place you know of. And so at some point they connected, and the one who had gone to heaven was just very happy and blissful. And the other one said, "Well, what do you all do up there?" And the man said, "Well, we chant, we pray, we chant, and we meditate." And then the man said, "Well, it's got to be something else. What else do you do up there?" And he says, "Well, we pray, we chant, and we meditate." And then the man said, "Oh God, there's got to be something else." And he said, "Well, let's see. Sometimes we change that and we pray, we meditate, and we chant." And I thought, how beautiful. Our whole life, no matter what we're doing, we should be thinking of God, praying inwardly, chanting inwardly, keeping our focus up at the spiritual eye, and knowing that God's love is always in our hearts. As we open, then we feel that love always with us. I'd like to close with a brief reading. And this is a beautiful story about a disciple of Master's at the end of his life. His name was Horace Gray, and I'll just read it because it's very beautiful and brief. There was a monk with multiple sclerosis named Horace Gray, who assisted the minister at the Phoenix Temple in the late 40s. A Phoenix devotee couldn't understand why Master didn't heal him. One day, this thought was on the devotee's mind as she saw Master. Just as she was about to ask Guruji about not healing Horace Gray, Master said to her, "Isn't it wonderful that in this life, Horace is going to work out all the karma that brought on his multiple sclerosis? Isn't it wonderful?" The devotee understood and never wondered again about Horace's condition. And from then on, she was really inspired by this monk, especially near the end of his life, when he was so weak he could no longer stand, but still desiring to serve and love his guru. He would lie down on the lawn at the Hermitage in Encinitas, where he spent his last days, and with his remaining strength, pull weeds one by one with his mind on God. And he did that to the very end. He was serving, loving God. He was doing what he could to serve his guru and love God. God bless you all. Let's meditate for just a moment now. We have a song. Let's meditate to this song, "What is Love" by Swamiji.
What is love? Is it only ours? Or does love whisper in the flowers? Surely we're children of this world, could not love by our own powers. What is joy? Is it just a dream? Or does joy laugh in every stream? Are the clouds my meaningless after all? Or is joy all nature's theme? God is dead, so men say. Can't they see all life's his play? Not a church binds him as its own, not a creed makes him fully known. Foolish if we limit him. Every atom is his throne. What is love? Is it only ours, or does love whisper in the flowers? Surely we're children of this world, could not love by our own powers. What is love?